Coming up, there are new efforts to raise the profile of natives in the Big Apple, and an entrepreneur is taking the steps needed to get her business running. Plus, the hostility between Oklahoma tribal nations and the governor continues. We learn about why. I'm Malia Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. Native American leaders in education and beyond are speaking out about the Supreme Court's decision to end affirmative action. The High Court's decision last week says colleges across the country will be forced to stop considering race in college admissions. Fawn Sharp, the president of the National Congress of American Indians, called the move, quote, exceptionally disappointing for Indigenous students. 4 of the nation's largest Native American scholarship providers said it was disheartening. So how will this impact Native American students who are continuously underrepresented in every level of education? Experts say Native American students who are citizens of tribal nations are in a unique position. That's because they are citizens of a sovereign nation rather than a racial group. Several Native organizations say this decision will not reverse the decades of work aimed at getting more Indigenous students access to higher education. In Maine, the governor has shut down a proposed law intended to help nations in the state. Last Friday, Governor Janet Mills vetoed the high-profile legislation that seemingly allowed tribal nations to bypass the federal recognition process. Through the Maine Indian Claims Settlement Act, tribal governments are bound to state law and treated like counties. Overriding a gubernatorial veto takes 2/3 support in both chambers. That means supporters will need to keep nearly every one of the 100 votes the bill received in the House on its initial passage. In response to the governor's action, Penobscot Nation Chief Kirk Francis said, quote, I'm confident in our friends and allies to make sure that we continue to work hard to get this over the finish line. The House and Senate could take up the veto during floor sessions this week. Well, Standing Rock's Fort Yates District is dropping in on a new skate park thanks to a team that includes some pretty big names. ICT's Vincent Moniz was at the North Dakota event and has all of the sights and sounds.
For many kids living in the rural Standing Rock community of Fort Yates, making their own fun is part of the adventure. One of the cheapest and most healthy ways is basketball and skateboarding, but where to do both is in short supply. So, North Dakota-based nonprofit AU and Montana Pool Service, an organization founded by Pearl Jam bassist Jeff Ament, decided to fix that. Standing Rock citizen and the not-for-profit's co-founder, Billy Joe B. Healer, spoke about the larger Indigenous ideas that went into the park.
Our collaboration is based on our Indigenous worldview, our Lakota worldview of Mitakuye Yuasi. We are all connected. So we find connections with other organizations that want to share a key message to the world. We are still here, we are thriving, and we want to work with other organizations that have this belief as well.
To bring the project to life, support came from Standing Rock itself, and incredibly, even Nike came with gifts. The community celebrated the opening of their world-class skate park and basketball court with a feed and music. This event also included an opening ceremony, the drum group Lakota Thunder, and a skate clinic. Youth skaters traveled all the way from Blackfeet and Pine Ridge tribal lands to join in and help beginners. Plus, members of the Nike Native American Network were there, including N7's founder Sam McCracken and Ambassador Shauna Long. The net artist and skater Dior Greenwood says skating at the event showed her that anything is possible when a community comes together.
What made me say yes to an event like this is the opportunity to see other leaders creating their dreams and bringing it into reality. Me seeing it firsthand allows me to be the leader I would need to be for my community, and them showing me what's possible only allows me to dream larger and bigger.
The healer, an active community member, said a key moment in her nation's history made it clear why Standing Rock youth should be centered and honored.
In 2016, during the No DAPL protests, our Standing Rock youth took the lead, and for them to go out and put themselves on the front lines for all of us, not just Standing Rock, but for all Indigenous nations, for all local communities, rural communities, for everyone.
From the Standing Rock Nation's Hagichdahanska district in North Dakota, Vincent Monaz, ICT News.
And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. With 180,000 American Indian residents, New York City is home to the largest urban Native population on Turtle Island. But sometimes it doesn't feel that way as their profile is swallowed up in the bustle of the big city. Enter the American Indian Community House, an organization working to raise the visibility of Natives in New York. ICT's Stewart Huntington caught up with the Community House Co-Director Patricia Tarrant.
Patricia, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
You grew up with the American Indian Community House.
Yes, I've been born and raised down in New Jersey, so I've been coming to Community House since I was born. My mother worked at the Community House, and my brother worked at the American Community House, and my sisters worked at the American Community House too, as well. So it's been a family affair.
And your daughter comes to all the events.
Yep, I have a 13-year-old daughter. She actually dances jingle. So she goes to a lot of powwows out here, and she comes to a lot of events. She does a lot of land acknowledgements at events as well.
Tell us about the work of the Community House.
Right now, we are the oldest and largest nonprofit for Native Americans. We've been around since 1969, and we are focusing right now on land back. We want to purchase or have a building donated to Native Americans in New York City and the Tri-State area.
I grew up here in New York City. There's not a big presence of Native Americans in New York City.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm familiar. I grew up in New Jersey, thinking that Natives, if my mom didn't know her heritage, I wouldn't know my heritage, just because New Jersey education, New York education, they don't talk about Natives as contemporary people. They talk about as past, or they've been here, they've been gone for centuries. But my mom, she was one of the last fluent speakers of our language, so I'm familiar with. She taught me how to my culture and my heritage and my traditions. So I'm very fortunate and honored and privileged that she was able to teach me those things, because a lot of people don't know it, and a lot of Native Americans, some of them out here are reconnecting Native Americans. Either they went to boarding school, or their parents went to boarding school, or they were adopted out as a child. So a lot of our community members, some of our community members are reconnecting Natives and just reestablishing their culture and learning their ways.
And you think you could do that more effectively if you had a center?
Yes, definitely. I think it's important for people to know where they come from and their heritage. And I think that if we had a space where everybody knew where it was and it's centrally located, that people are able to come and learn their culture and learn their ways, I think it would be a resurgence of Native Americans in New York City. New York is the highest urban population with 180,000 Native Americans according to the census. So I think it's important for them to have a place to go to where it's a safe place for them.
And you guys are putting on a powwow in September?
Yes, September 16th. We're having a powwow on Governor's Island in the field out there, and I think it's called Nolan Field in Governor's Island. So we have a grant from Urban Indian Health Institute that will help us pay for the powwow, and we are looking at donations to major donors, and we recently are able to hire a development director, and it's the first time that the American Community House can have a development director.
What's your message to New Yorkers?
We're still here. This is, Native country. Everywhere is Native country, and, we're still here, and it's a resurgence right now. They have so many TV shows now with Native Americans. Growing up, there was no Native Americans, only on the History Channel, and, Reservation Dogs. I think it's a good time to be for Natives. Just in politics, Deb Haaland, she's Department of Secretary of Interior, and she's the first Native after how many years America's been around, and she's the first in 2023. So,
what else would you like to touch on?
We are actually having a youth event on July 7th, 8th, and 9th. We're having a youth weekend, and we're trying to reestablish our youth council. We have several members right now, but we're just trying to reestablish it and make sure it's somewhere that Native youth can go to and be safe and be seen as Natives and learn their ways and learn their culture.
Have you had any outreach with any of the schools in New York?
Yes, we work with Columbia students, we work with NYU students, and we're actually working with the CUNY schools. They're establishing a Native Studies program there as well. So we're just working with them to establish that.
Any communication with the city government?
We have some. We met with the City Hall, Department of Cultural Affairs, and so we've had several meetings with them about just having helping them have us purchase a building. Is we've reached out to them several times to help us, and we have a artist residency program out in Governor's Island, and so we have different artists coming out. We have about 4 artists next month coming out to Governor's Island, so they'll be here from July through into August. And then in September and October, we have different artists coming as well. So they're mostly there Friday through Sunday. So you're welcome to stop by. It's house number 15 on Governor's Island. So if you're in the area, it's a nice ferry ride. It's like only 10 minutes, not even. And it's quiet out there. You wouldn't think you were in New York City when you go out there because it's so quiet.
Thank you very much for being on.
Thanks for coming to New York Community House.
ASU's Thunderbird School of Global Management has a business program called Project Dreamcatcher geared toward Native women. Its recent cohort had a graduating class of 38 women who either have a business already or are looking to start one. Jessica Joaquin is one of the graduates and is joining us now to tell us about her experience. Hello to you, Jessica.
Hello to you. Thank you for having me.
How did you hear about Project Dreamcatcher and what made you want to join the program?
I've had this kind of dream, I guess, to start my own business, kind of work for myself, to have clients. I was getting a couple clients here and there, but I really wanted to make it official, and I didn't really have the proper tools in my brain to make that happen. Finding the time to do all the research about businesses, business licenses, everything like that. And, one day I was on Facebook and I just saw an ad for the Project Dreamcatcher. And I was like, wow, this seems like it's exactly what I need. So I'm kind of like looking around like, how is this, computer reading my mind right now? But I clicked on the link. I started reading more and more about it. And it just sounded like it was everything that I needed. It was a week to think nothing about, only think about your business, being surrounded by other women who were kind of in that same mindset. And, I took a chance. It was kind of hard because, I don't know, you kind of worry about things. You don't know if you're the right candidate, if you qualify. A lot of self-doubt kicks in, but I kind of just pushed all of that aside really quickly. And I'm like, well, the worst they can say is, no, we're not going to pick you for this cohort. And I was prepared to hear that. So I just decided to apply. And, about a month later, I was chosen for an interview. And then I was one of 38 people selected out of 200 candidates. And I was very, very happy to hear that.
Talk to us more about the business that you want to start and what the process has been like to get there.
Well, so, the process kind of started with my current position in, I guess you would say, real life. I've been a graphic designer, multimedia designer for over 20 years. I started way back in the 1900s. 1998, I got my first computer and I started designing things and doing stuff. And I basically kind of got into that industry of graphic design and web design. And I noticed in doing that type of work, I wanted to help more people and do more projects that were kind of out of the norm, finding different mediums. And, the Project Dreamcatcher really helped me find a safe place where I can connect with other women and other people in the industry, where I can ask the simple questions that I had, because a lot of these little questions were, I was very specific and I could never find an answer online and on my Google search and research and everything like that. So Project Dreamcatcher really helped me with that. And then since completing the project, everybody's just kind of had a fire in them and are making steps. So I went and my LLC is currently in the process of being registered. I have I've bought my domain for my website. I have created my social media accounts for my business, and now it's just a matter of bringing all of those pieces together, starting to put my name out there. And my business is going to be called Morning Sunrise Media, and it's going to be pretty much graphic design, logo design, pamphlets, banners, whatever you need, social media assets, all of those things.
While you were doing the program, what one piece of advice or particular lesson did you learn that you'd like to share with other people who might be in a similar place that you were in wanting to start a business?
I think the one thing that I really learned, and again, this goes back to Project Dreamcatcher being a safe environment. I think the one thing I really took out from it is that you have to ask questions. There are people there who want to answer them. There are your colleagues who want to help you. I don't think I realized the amount of, people I had in my corner, even total strangers I had in my corner. I had never met anyone at this cohort, and we were all solidified in wanting each and every single one of us to be successful. And I think that in order to find that, I had to speak up and open my mouth and ask questions, even if I thought they were silly questions, or, I wasn't afraid to look like a newbie. I am a newbie and I'm proud of that. And one day, I won't be, and I'll be able to help somebody else. And I think that's what I really got out of that, is just the strength from other like-minded people will take you really far.
Tell us about the other women that you got to experience this program with. What tribal nations did they come from?
Oh, they were, let's see, Wallapai. We had Navajo, Tonaotum, which is what I am, Pasquayaqui, White Mountain Apache, Hopi. There were so many different women there, and we all had our unique skill and business plan and business model, and and some of us were kind of overlapping in the same kind of industry. But, it was never competitive. It wasn't anything like that. I think we all realized, the world is big enough for all of us, to take up space. And it was a lot of helping each other out. And, hey, this is what I did when I was running into that problem. Or maybe, giving us suggestions on how we can solve potential challenges that we might come into.
Well, Jessica, Joaquin, we wish you all the best, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Late last week, a federal appeals court ruled that the city of Tulsa in Oklahoma lacks the jurisdiction to prosecute a Native American man after he was cited by police for speeding. That's because the city is located within the boundaries of a reservation. Shortly after the decision, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt posted this photo to social media showing 2 speed limits, including one called the tribal speed limit. It was the latest in a long series of hostility between Stitt, who is a Cherokee citizen himself, and the tribal nations in the area. Joining us once again is ICT regular contributor John Tasuda. Hi, John. Welcome back.
Hello. Good to be back.
Set the stage for us for this lawsuit and who the major players were.
So this lawsuit actually involves an arrest that was made prior to the decisions that came down more recently that recognized the continued existence of the Muskogee Nation Reservation in Oklahoma. And the arrest occurred in the city, within the city limits of Tulsa, but much of the city limits of Tulsa are actually within the boundaries of the Muskogee Reservation. So, but you might have thought, following the decisions that came out, that that this would not have been a question, that he would not have been able to be arrested. But there is prior legislation, actually prior to Oklahoma statehood, called the Curtis Act, which was in part intended to implement the allotment process there in the Muskogee Creek Nation area, as well as some of the other tribes there. But it had a lot of other provisions that dealt with sort of pre-statehood issues. And one of these dealt with townships and et cetera that were to be established before statehood. And the city of Tulsa had been, for a number of years, pursuing this idea that this township provision, if you want to call it that, that was in this Curtis Act, predating statehood and, of course, predating these Supreme Court decisions, that gave them the continuing authority to make sort of minor arrests for minor breaking of the law. So they continue to make traffic stops, et cetera. But this now kind of seals the deal, unless, of course, the city decides to take it to the Supreme Court.
We saw earlier the photo that Governor Stitt posted to social media. I was reading some of the responses, and some people were asking if there is, in fact, a tribal speed limit. So I want to ask you, John, is there a separate speed limit for tribal citizens and for American citizens?
My understanding is that no. So the city of Tulsa is, of course, free to set speed limits within its boundaries that apply across the board. And my understanding of the way that Muskogee Creek Nation implements their laws, and I believe this is consistent with what Principal Chief David Hill expressed shortly after Governor Stitt's sort of unfortunate posts on social media, but that they respect those. And if persons are arrested who are Indian, then similar to what a law enforcement would do in other jurisdictions, that ticket can be forwarded to the Muskogee Creek Nation judicial process, and the ticket will be enforced. The fine will be paid by the individual. The only difference would be in this situation, the state of Oklahoma. If it was a state highway, the state of Oklahoma gets some small portion of the fine. And instead of the state, in this case, getting it, it would go to the Muskogee Creek Nation as sort of the overall law enforcement authority in that area. But what's lost, I think, in a lot of this hyperbole that gets passed around is the basic questions of, law enforcement, community safety, et cetera. And I think what Chief Hill was trying to say is that does not change. The person who commits the offense still pays the penalty for that. It's just sort of in a sense, you might think of it as a back office process and how it's handled. So I think that, in some, unfortunately, and it would be best if folks could focus on what's really important in the communities, which is to continue, police activity, community safety, et cetera. And as long as that is being occurred, then the law enforcement agencies should be able to, and they have all the tools to do it, be able to make arrangements. And it's not unprecedented. We have in other parts of the country, right, we have federal parks, National Park Service has their own police force, and they make arrests, but the Park Service doesn't have its own its own judges, to do fines. So they often cooperate with local jurisdictions, forward those tickets to them. They have a process of working out who gets the fine, et cetera. And so, and then of course, like on Indian lands, if you're in a national park, then if it's a major crime, then of course you go to a federal court. But if it's a minor issue like a traffic ticket, then it's often handled by a local jurisdiction, and the two police forces just cooperate on enforcing that. I think if people could kind of take the emotion out of this and look at that, this is not actually an unusual situation across the country, not just in Indian country, then we could do a better job of getting past the emotional points, the political points, and focus on the law enforcement aspect and just make sure that there's no holes there. The one thing I think that nobody wants is, a sort of hole in law enforcement within Indian country. And I think that only occurs when the jurisdictions don't cooperate with each other.
Well, ICT regular contributor John Tsuda, thank you as always.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.